Hi. Season of the Deep is just a week away, and Bungie is making a lot of changes that's really going to transform how we actually play Destiny 2. There's a new dungeon coming, and with a new dungeon comes a new boss to melt. So, in this video, I want to talk about DPS metas and what they're going to look like next season, but more specifically, I want to talk about what exotics are going to be meta next season. So to start this off, let's look at what we've got right now. Honestly, when it comes to DPS metas, the only thing really worth noting is Starfire Protocol, because that exotic can carry a whole DPS phase by itself, as well as it is so powerful. Pretty much no other Warlock exotic exists right now. And then for Titans and Hunters, all you guys really have for DPS meta is you make your super deal more damage, whether that's Star Eater Scales, Nighthawk, or Curse of a Falling Star. But out of everything I just mentioned, only one of those is actually getting touched next season. And it's not really getting touched, it's getting deleted, removed. It's Starfire Protocol. I'm sure you've heard. And honestly, I think it's a good thing. I'm not a huge fan of when one exotic is the only choice for months on end, and Starfire Protocol was that. So to be a little bit more specific, you can see on screen, of course, what Bungie's actually changing about Starfire Protocol. To give some context, as it is right now, you can put on Starfire Protocol, shoot the boss with Witherhoard or Osteostriga or Wolfpack rounds from Galahorn, and then infinite grenades. And if you pair that with a demo rocket, infinite rockets. So it's pretty easy to see how and why this thing was so meta, but with them reducing the amount of grenade energy you get by so much at almost 10 times less energy, this exotic is not going to be nearly as good as it is right now. Granted, people will still be able to use it, but it's not going to be the end all be all. But let's talk about what's going to fill the void. When something that is super strong is no longer super strong, it allows some other things to shine through. And I wanted to talk about what is going to be those things next season. We'll start with Warlock, but I also want to talk about Titans and Hunters and what their meta DPS exotics will also be. So for Warlocks, I think the number one choice is going to be Sunbracers. There's been a lot of coverage over the really cheesy stuff you can do, like soloing Riven in 5 seconds or other various goofy things by using Sunbracers and the Touch of Flame aspect, which Starfire Protocol actually already used. But other than that, I think Geomag Stabilizers is going to be up there, because in my previous video I did some damage testing, and Chaos Reach is actually poised to be probably the strongest super next season. And then outside of Geomag, I would say Phoenix Protocol, but that's not really a DPS meta super because it doesn't add DPS, it just allows you to have more Wells of Radiance. Those kind of go hand in hand, so I'll add this one to the list as well. But I mean, that's kind of all I really need to say. There's a couple options for Warlocks and what they're going to be using during DPS next season, but let's move on to Hunter and see if any of the changes will alter the go-to Hunter DPS exotic. So to begin this section, let's talk about the changes coming next season, starting off with the biggest buff. Golden Gun is getting buffed by 20%, which is nice, and it actually doesn't change the exotic landscape too much, because currently you have a choice between Celestial Nighthawk and Star Eater Scales, and both of those can buff Golden Gun. So that's not really going to change much, other than you're going to be dealing a lot more damage now. As for some other interesting things, you've got Arc Staff as well being buffed up by 20%, which by connection makes Raiden Flux kind of a pick. Any veterans watching might remember the Raiden Flux DPS meta for Spire of Stars, but I'm not sure if a 20% buff is really going to take us back to that. However, I definitely won't be overlooking this come next season. And then the final thing that's affecting Hunters is a 35% increase coming to Spectral Blades, which, outside of Star Eater Scales, the other exotic it makes you think of is Gwaizen Vest, which doesn't increase super damage at all. So all you've still got is Star Eater Scales, which I guess it would be a change seeing people use Star Eater Scales for Spectral Blades damage, but it's not going to be a new exotic. So for the purposes of this video, it doesn't really count for anything. And that's already it. There's not a whole lot to talk about, Hunters. Y'all are seeing a lot of buffs, but none of those buffs are really going to be applying to any different exotics. So yeah, nothing's changing with hunters. Let's move on to Titans and see if maybe they'll be more affected by the changes coming next season. So Titan exotics and supers are receiving a considerable amount of changes next season, but while they're kind of impactful at 10 to 20% for a lot of the supers, there isn't a whole lot being done to DPS exotics to make a change. As for supers, I'd like to bring up as a possibility here, the heavy attack from Striker is going to be dealing 33% more damage, so who knows, maybe you're going to see a bam heavy attack on Striker Titan DPS meta. I don't know. I don't even know if that 33% buff is going to do anything. I don't really play Titan. However, with me saying nothing's really going to change with Titans, I do want to bring up something which seems pretty interesting, and that would be no backup plans, but specifically the change that's coming to them next season. There have been a lot of really interesting boss melts using Void Titans and stuff like Wormgod's Caress to pretty much one-shot bosses. But now we've got a different thing coming to Void Titan. In the form of the new no backup plans, shotguns will be dealing increased damage while you have a Void Overshield. And if that increased damage is anything like the increased melee damage they get while having a Void Overshield, we may actually see a meta where you put on no backup plans, drop your barricade, and then unload into the boss with 4th Horseman. Because if this increased damage is a sizable amount, then I could absolutely see that being the case. And other than 4th Horseman, you've got options like Slug Shotguns, which at this point in time are in a pretty good spot, other than bosses not being sluggable. And also Tractor Cannon, a 30% debuff, one of the only ones in the game. It's a shotgun. But outside of no backup plans, I don't think anything else is really going to be changing. You're still going to be putting on Periods of a Falling Star and clicking the button. That's all I've got to talk about. Let me know in the comments what you think, because I'm really interested in if you think anything is going to change at all, because there's some nuance when it comes to these changes. And let me know what you want to see. Maybe there's an exotic that you're hoping is DPS meta and maybe hasn't received the buff yet, or there's something I just missed. And if you want to support me and support this channel, comment down below deep, because Season of the Deep is just a week away and I'm really excited. So again, thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, I hope you like me a little bit, so a subscription would be super appreciated. But that's all I'll say. I hope to see you around.